follow-ups to the greatest hits. This is Trash Can Tidbits.
Hey there, everyone. This is Trash Can Tidbits, and I am your host, Beaton. Last time, I asked the question, which voice actor from SpongeBob does not play their character in Battle for Bikini Bottom? The answer is Clancy Brown. Brown plays Mr. Krabs on the show, and he has done so for other SpongeBob games, but for some reason he doesn't do so for this game. He's replaced by voice actor Joe White, who, in my opinion, only does a moderate impersonation of Mr. Krabs, not a complete sound-alike performance. A small note here, Ernest Borgnine also does not provide the voice for Mermaid Man in the game either. White also does his voice. Now with that address, let's get started with fact number 1. Did you know that despite the movie Airplane being a parody of disaster films in the 1970s, it is actually based on an earlier movie? The movie was a 1957 drama called 0 Hour, which has a similar premise to Airplane. The flight crew of an airliner gets sick with food poisoning, and a former World War II pilot suffering from PTSD who was a passenger is recruited to try to land the plane safely. Airplane's creators of Jim Abrams, David Zucker, and Jerry Zucker decided not only to make 0 Hour the de facto inspiration for their comedic take, but to parody other disaster films of the 1970s, like Airport and its sequels. The cast of actors who were known for playing it straight, like Leslie Nielsen and Robert Stack, made the comedic dialogue even better. The creators knew they had the ability to make serious-sounding lines funny at the same time. These actors gained new careers in comedy as a result, Nielsen especially, which culminated in the Naked Gun franchise, among many others. Coincidentally, Leslie Nielsen also appeared in another disaster movie of the 1970s, The Poseidon Adventure. Fact 2. Did you know that director David Fincher used a very clever method of getting his movie Fight Club past the studio system? As is often the case with studios meddling with the director's vision, Fincher recalled that he had the most awful time butting heads with executives with his directorial debut, Alien 3, a movie he ended up disowning and refusing to acknowledge that he made. When he got to direct Fight Club, which was also released by Fox, there was one line of dialogue that executive producer Laura Ziskin wanted to be cut, as it was too shocking. It was during the post-sex scene between Tyler Durden and Marla, with Marla's line being, "I want to have your abortion." Ziskin was horrified and demanded Fincher either change the line or delete the scene altogether. Fincher obliged with a line change, on the condition that it couldn't be changed again, which Ziskin agreed to. So he changed the line to something even more obscene. "I haven't been like that since grade school." Ziskin was furious and demanded the line be changed back to the original, but Fincher, as per their deal, refused and reminded her that he alone had final cut. Smart move, David. Smart move. Fact 3. Did you know that actress Piper Laurie, best known for playing the religious fanatic mother Margaret White in Carrie, always thought that the movie and her performance was a black comedy? Laurie's previous movie was 1961's The Hustler, and then she retired from films to raise her daughter. She came out of retirement when she made this movie in 1976. When she first read the script, she thought that the character of Carrie's hyper-religious mother was written too campy, and she had no idea that it was a horror movie. She accepted when she was told by a friend that director Brian De Palma always had a slightly comedic edge to his movies at the time, and she played her character on set as campy and over the top, to the point where she would laugh hysterically between takes at the religious dialogue she had to say, not realizing that Margaret was supposed to be a complete nutcase. De Palma, however, repeatedly had to tell Laurie that they were indeed making a horror movie, which she didn't really believe. Despite an Oscar nomination, Piper Laurie maintained for the rest of her life that she saw the movie and her character as a black comedy. Similarly, actors Nancy Allen and John Travolta thought their characters were comic relief when filming, that they had no idea how despicable and evil they were until they saw the movie. Fact 4. Did you know that even though their characters of Sabrina and Libby were rivals on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Melissa Joan Hart and Jenna Lee Green became really good friends, which they still are to this day. Throughout the series, Sabrina took delight in trying to use her powers to humiliate the snooty cheerleader, Libby. They often broke character between takes and laughed instead of being mean to each other. Not only that though, but this wouldn't be the last time that Jenna would be involved in a project involving witches. This is rarely talked about for her, but she would go on to play both Elphaba and Nessa Rose in the first national tour of Wicked between 2005 and 2007. She primarily played Nessa on the tour and was the main understudy for Elphaba. Based on videos and audio clips I've seen on YouTube, she gives a solid performance as both characters. Fact 5. Did you know that the first episode of WandaVision was the only one filmed in front of a live studio audience? The series creator, Jack Schaefer, went the extra mile of making each episode of Marvel's show depict a specific era of television sitcoms from black and white all the way to color in the present day. Since the show within a show is a figment of Wanda Maximoff's imagination and creation, the first episode was meant to parody black and white sitcoms of the 1950s. In particular, I Love Lucy and The Dick Van Dyke Show. Shows like those were filmed with a live studio audience. The first episode of WandaVision was no different, even giving it the title, filmed before a live studio audience, and also utilized the specific lighting techniques television used to make actors look good in black and white. So the producers of the show spared no expense in making the first Disney Plus exclusive MCU project made for television look as authentic as possible for each era depicted, right down to the types of cameras used, the aspect ratio as technology evolved, and even the laughter from the audience in the very first episode. Fact 6. Did you know that the first Mission Impossible movie is the only movie in the franchise to have a character taking off a mask using practical effects? In the movie, Tom Cruise uses several disguises to impersonate different characters, usually wearing a mask, a series trademark. It is also the only movie in the franchise where he plays two different characters. In one scene set at an embassy ball in Prague, Cruise's character of Ethan Hunt impersonates a United States senator named John Walzer. At the beginning of the movie where the team is being briefed on their mission, Ethan is shown a video clip of the real Walzer, and he is in fact being played by Tom Cruise in prosthetic makeup. So, Tom Cruise, in addition to playing the main character of Ethan Hunt impersonating a US senator, pulls double duty playing the real senator. All the other movies in the franchise use CG visual effects to show characters taking off a mask. Fact 7. Did you know that the producers of Animaniacs staged a rather interesting publicity stunt to drum up hype for the series? When the show was first being developed in-house at WB Animation, and despite the involvement of Steven Spielberg, word actually didn't get around to the studio higher-ups about it. Nonetheless, the first marketing attempt for Animaniacs began with a giant blow-up balloon of Yakko Warner being placed on top of the WB lot's iconic water tower, where the Warner siblings make their home on the show. Unfortunately, the balloon stayed up very briefly because when the studio executives, and especially then CEO Jerry Levin, first saw it, they thought it was a prank by Disney, mistaking it for a poorly designed Mickey Mouse balloon and ordered it to be taken down. This publicity stunt did not stop the production of the show by any means. Spielberg later explained the situation, and the show went on to be a success for 5 seasons. Fact 8. Did you know that The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask was developed within the span of 1 year? This was due to the long development time of the previous N64 Zelda game, Ocarina of Time, which began as early as 1995. The good news of that long time span, however, is that enough gaming assets were made available when Majora's Mask began production, i.e., character models, reworked locations, gameplay, etc. With this, Shigeru Miyamoto personally asked director Eiji Aonuma for the next Zelda game after Ocarina of Time to be finished within 1 year. Because the theme of the game involved Link trying to save the world from the impending crash of a moon, the concept of the in-game 3-day time limit and repeatedly using the ocarina to start the clock over again made development a lot smoother. The 2 Legend of Zelda games for the Nintendo 64 remain classics to this day. Fact 9. Did you know that even though he has sung on Broadway in several musicals, Matthew Broderick has not once done the singing for Simba in the Lion King franchise? Throughout most of the series, including the first movie and the 2 direct-to-video sequels, Broderick has only done the speaking voice for Simba. It was deemed that his own singing voice was not strong enough. For the first movie, adult Simba's singing voice was provided by Joseph Williams, best known as the lead singer for the 80s rock band Toto. For The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, and The Lion King 1.5, Broderick once again does the speaking for adult Simba, but his singing was instead done by voice acting veteran Camp Clark. Clark, best known for playing Leonardo in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon and Liquid Snake in Metal Gear Solid, occasionally did fill in for Simba's speaking voice as well, such as the Timon and Pumbaa cartoon and Kingdom Hearts 2. The two actors do sound remarkably similar. Matthew Broderick, meanwhile, in the years since the first Lion King's release, would get the chance to sing in such Broadway musicals as How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, as well as the show he's best remembered for, The Producers. But his singing for Simba to this day has not been heard. Fact 10. Did you know that although the characters of the Scarecrow, Tin Man, Cowardly Lion, the Wicked Witch, and the Wizard himself have counterparts in the Kansas scenes in The Wizard of Oz, Glinda does not? It was co-screenwriter Noel Langley who came up with that idea for the 1939 movie, including changing Dorothy's magic shoes from silver, as in the original book, to ruby. Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, does not have a Kansas counterpart in the movie, but in 2013's Oz the Great and Powerful, the opening scenes, which are in fact set in Kansas, finally give an origin for her. The movie also gives a backstory to Oscar Diggs, the shady conman magician who finds himself in the wonderful land of Oz after a tornado, and at the end of the movie, through a series of big circumstances, becomes the title character. Oscar was once in love with a woman named Annie, played by Michelle Williams, who comes to him saying that she is marrying a man named John Gale. Gale is the last name of Dorothy in the L. Frank Baum novels and in the 1939 film. Based on this, it's confirmed in at least one source that Glinda's Kansas counterpart was indeed Dorothy's deceased mother. If you look closely, Annie is even wearing a gingham dress, the same fabric pattern that Dorothy would later wear. Oz the Great and Powerful continues the original movie's theme of side characters in Kansas having fantasy counterparts in the Technicolor Magic Land. And here's today's trivia question. With the release of the movie Sinners, director Ryan Coogler and star Michael B. Jordan once again re-team, this time to bring you a period drama with a mixture of amazing music and spine-tingling vampire horror. A ton of amazing facts have sprung up that caught my attention, one being that the lead vampire in the movie, Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, was partially based on Deathwolf from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Honestly, the idea of Daddy Death being a vampire in a movie about the blues is so intoxicating, and I can totally see that. It makes me happy that Ryan Coogler is a fan of that movie. The other fact that really surprised me is that the soundtrack, while primarily Delta blues based, has a lot of influences from classical to early rock to heavy metal, including but not limited to inspiration from Metallica. Even one of the band's founding members is a featured musician in the score. My question to you is, which Metallica member plays on the soundtrack to Sinners? And there we go for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly learned some new things myself. I hope to be back soon for more. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and ring the bell to be notified for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.